Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go.
You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Oh, the countdown's getting close. We're getting legitimately close to kickoff between the Eagles and the Giants. Their divisional matchup coming tomorrow night at the Lincoln Financial Field down in South Philly. I went with the Albany hat today because it's got a little purple in it, which matches my eyes. I like the Eagles. I'm getting more healthy by the minute. Not 100% yet, same as the Philadelphia Eagles, because J-Mac, you had this one scoped out. Avante Maddox never even made it onto the practice field. Thought that everyone else would be good to go for the game, but Avante, not happening. That's exactly the way it's played. Jalen, not on the injured list. A full participant yesterday at practice was Lane Johnson, except for Avante Maddox. The Eagles look ready to go, John.
Yeah, and a little bit of Aaron Cepas talk, because Aaron thought maybe he could make it back, but I always thought that would be more likely for the championship game or the Super Bowl. So, yeah, as far as being healthy at this point of the year, it's as good as you can get. You're always going to have some nicks and bruises. And again, just because you're full go doesn't mean you're 100%. I think people conflate that a little bit. And obviously, Lane Johnson's not 100%. And I don't even think Jalen's 100%. But there's no doubt they're going to play. There was never any doubt they were going to play. Now it's about, executing and putting everything on the table. And I think it's a good matchup. I've said it from pretty early in this process. I mean, these two teams do not match up well. Styles make bites for our old boxing people. The New York Giants do not match up well with the Eagles. They haven't for years. Now they're getting better. They're getting incrementally better, but they still don't match up well.
And I agree with your overall analysis. The Giants are improved. Anyone who doesn't say that is just either a blind Eagle loyalist or don't want to give the Giants credit for what they've achieved. But then you get the other side of it. The people who think the Giants have improved by leaps and bounds. You use the word incrementally. I like that. They've gotten better. Daniel Jones is certainly playing better than what he was, because I was never a Daniel Jones fan, so I had to throw out some mea culpas his way, because he certainly has improved as a quarterback. Enough to outshine a team that beat them just 6 weeks ago by 25 points? I don't think so. We're talking about 2 games. They beat the Colts pretty handily with a playoff spot on the line. They knew if they won it, they were locked into a wild card spot, and then they could do what they wanted to do against the Eagles the last week of the season. They ran the Colts off the field. And last week's upset win in Minnesota against the second worst defense in the entire National Football League. So, yes, I will give them credit for improvement, not leaps and bounds. And that's what I think it would take for the Giants to be able to beat the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field this Saturday. And I just don't see it on paper or on the field.
Yeah, I remember, and our buddy Pat Leonard's going to be on the show in the second hour talking about that game at MetLife Stadium. And how the Giants were kind of shook in the locker room. They were handled so easily by the Eagles. And, he remarked that hasn't seen that too often in the past. So, yeah, I still think there's a pretty significant difference from a personnel perspective with these two teams. And, but the Giants are getting better, and they're getting better. And I think 2 years from now, we might be talking about a problem with the New York Giants if they continue going at making good decisions, going in a positive direction. I think this is a tremendous foundation they're built, but I think they're not ready for this spot yet, and we'll see how it shakes out. One of the things is, and this is human nature. Everybody remembers the last thing they saw. The Eagles didn't play, and the Giants were very impressive against Minnesota. And I'll bring up Dan Orlovsky because I like Dan. Number one, I think he's really good. But he put a clip up, and he's showing that Minnesota defense that we talked about, who, by the way, fired their defensive coordinator yesterday. And I'm not a scapegoat guy. You know that, Jody. But there's not much you can do there. There's no life raft there. That was one you had to do. And he said, the Eagles play the same concepts, which they do. They play the scheme that we've talked about so much throughout this season. And if they do that against Daniel Jones this week, they're playing right into his hands. I'm like, come on, Dan. I mean, one plays it well, one doesn't. It's not a vacuum. I'm pretty confident that the Eagles are going to be able to handle that mighty Giants offense. And we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. And by the way, if I am wrong, we're going to be here Monday morning. I'm going to rip this team to high heaven if they lose this game, because this is not a game you should even be in a discussion of losing. If you bring I'll call it your C game. Forget about your A game. If you bring your A game, you're running them out of the stadium. If you bring your C game, if you just don't bring your F game like you did against the Washington Commanders, the one loss of this season with Jalen Hurts on the field, that is the only way you lose this game, Jody. The only way.
And I might go D game. If the Giants play an A and Eagles play a D, they could find a way to lose it. I don't know if I would go quite as harsh, but you're right. If the Eagles play their A game, even if the Giants play their A game, I think it's a double-digit win. I think the Eagles will win handily, and the 7.5 is the number on the cover as of right now. And I surely think they can do that if they play their A game. But the reason that we question whether they can play their A game or not is twofold. It's two players. It's Lane Johnson and it's Jalen Hurts. Now, we won't know what condition they are in until the game starts. And we might not know a series in or even a quarter in. We get a half and we pretty well better darn know exactly how close to 100% that they are. But because both are dealing with injuries, you can't just say, I know for a fact that they're going to be able to play to the level that they played. And for Jalen Hurts, that's MVP type level. For Lane Johnson, that's Hall of Fame type level for his entire career and first team All-Pro. Do we know we're going to get that out of those two guys and their key important positional players? We don't. But we believe that that's the case. We've got indications that that's the case. The short time you guys got to watch practice any yesterday, the most important thing with Jalen Hurts is going to be when he takes off, and he will take off. Last week against the Giants, he didn't have one designated run, one called run. There will be some of those this week. But we need to see him be able to throw the football. I thought he threw it fine last week. I won't say, oh, my God, of course, he looked exactly like he looked. But he didn't look like he was favoring it at all. It didn't look like there wasn't the usual zip on the ball. I thought he looked fine throwing. He didn't throw it as often, as much as maybe you would have liked. But did you see anything at practice yesterday that gave you any indication as to how Jalen Hurts looked throwing the football?
Not yesterday, because yesterday's the typical Friday practice moved up a day. So basically all we get to watch is stretching and then we're out of there. It's a real quick environment. So I go back to Thursday, Wednesday. See, I'm already screwing up my days. And that was the big practice. And yeah, I've said from the start, the bigger concern was not the throwing, it was the contact. And that kind of borne out, and people were upset because I think it's natural with a shoulder, right? People think, well, he's going to have difficulty throwing the ball. And they threw it, whatever, 8 times in the first 10 plays. I forget what it was, but, and people were like, what are you doing? He's got a hurt shoulder. And from the beginning was pretty clear they were keeping him away from contact. That was the bigger concern than the actual throwing of the football. So I've never been that concerned with that since he came back. The contact issue is the bigger issue for me. And that's why they took the zone read mechanics out of the offense to try to prevent that as much as possible. And you can see Jalen himself, and he admitted he was trying to protect himself a little bit from the contact part of it. And I think that's gotten better. You had the 2 week, that's where the rest really helped. And my concern is not this week, it's next week. Like if he goes there and he gets hit a couple times, it's going to pop up again. And then he's got the short span before he's got to be on the field. You're going to have the extra day, but it's not like 2 weeks. And then if you get through the championship game, you get 2 weeks again. And I think it becomes less of a concern. So I think that wheelhouse is that 1 week between the potential divisional round win and an NFC championship game. If he gets banged up in this game, that could be an issue. But you got to win this game. The championship game's not in play if you don't win this game. So even though you should win this game, even though it's a nice opponent to have at this stage, people, I always say you can talk yourself into things in the NFL. You got to play somebody. You got to play a good team in the playoffs. They got to be able to do something well. You can't play the Bears. You can't play the Texans. You got to. So of the grouping that you could have potentially had, and after seeing Tampa Bay, I might change my mind because that was such a bad football team. But how are they going to beat Dallas anyway? This is as good as you get in this particular position. So you got to take advantage of it. But Lane's not healthy. I mean, but to me, Jody, with Lane, look, if he can't go, he can't go. And then he's going to come out of the game and it's going to be Jack Driscoll. I think he'll be able to go. I think he'll finish. But yeah, he's not going to be 100%. He's having surgery after the season.
But I have, and I've said this all week, and nothing that's happened. If anything, I'm more emboldened in my stance. I think Lane Johnson's going to be Lane Johnson. If you get someone dropping in from Europe who didn't watch the Eagles play any of the games this year, any of Lane Johnson's previous years, and you just told them Lane Johnson's the best right tackle in football, keep an eye on him during the game, I think at the end of the game, they go, oh, yeah, I can see why he's the best right tackle in football. I expect Lane Johnson to play like Lane Johnson because he's that tough a guy, and he will be properly medically taken care of before the game to make sure he's not in pain during the game. I'm not sweating the right tackle position. And another thing that I will, again, go out on a limb for, the Eagles will call their game with Lane Johnson's responsibilities being Lane Johnson's responsibilities. I don't think they will slide help or keep a back in or chip with a tight, because we need to protect Lane. No. Lane Johnson will be on Lane Johnson's island, and they will call the game exactly the way they do every single game. Now, we saw them make adjustment with Jalen Hurts when he was hurt. The last game of the season was an important win, but not a must win because they were already in the playoffs. They knew they were going in the playoffs. They could have lost that game and the season would have continued. This week, not so much. They lose, it's over. So I think the way that they look at play calling will differ from the game they played against the Giants 2 weeks ago to the one they're going to play on Sunday. Lane Johnson is not looked at this way. I think Lane Johnson is looked at.
No, I think the bigger concern from that perspective is, they don't help Jack Driscoll enough when he's in there, or Jordan Mailata, or Jordan Mailata early in the season when he hurt his shoulder. People forget they don't help their tackles. They don't help Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. They're on an island, and that gives the Eagles a huge advantage over most offenses because most offenses can't do that. And my bigger criticism of the Eagles when Lane wasn't in there, you probably didn't give enough help to Jack Driscoll and expected him to do too much Lane Johnson stuff. Yeah, they're not helping Lane Johnson. Period. That doesn't even enter the conversation.
A phrase that was thrown around a lot in 2017 when the Eagles won the Super Bowl was next man up. They had a lot of guys come off the bench to fill in for injured players, and they treated them as next men up. You're expected to replace the guy you're expected to replace, and you're expected to do what he did. Maybe not to the exact same level, but close enough that we're not going to change things to cover up for the fact that there's a small drop-off in talent with the replacement player. This one isn't even a consideration. So those who are worried about Lane Johnson, I say don't worry. He will be perfectly fine. JM, I want to get this in before we get our first guest up here. Bob Groats is going to join us, Mr. Delco Times himself. Did you see the Eagle hype video?
I did, but I, went through it very quickly. Shall I say?
Do you like It's a Philly thing?
I do not like hype videos in general. I generally don't pay attention to them. I happened to be on Twitter when it popped up from the Eagles, so I looked at it.
I think Johnny's freezing
and I
up.
gave it the look that it deserved. I don't.
Okay.
You got me?
So you're not a hype video guy.
Yeah, I'm not big. I'm not big of them. No. I one of the things I saw the Giants, a lot of people have Giant clips. I have you, Jody. Do you have me?
Yeah, I'm good.
A lot of people put clips of Giants practice out, and they were dancing around, and Daniel Jones was doing the gritty, and they were upset by that. I'm like, I don't get it. I mean, NFL players are competent. They're not gonna, all of them, they don't get to this position without being competent in their abilities. They're not going to be shrinking violets. Oh, woe is us. We got to go into Philadelphia. They're going to try to win the game. Now, I don't think they're going to win the game. I don't think they have the talent to win the game, but that's sort of their mentality. I don't know why people get so hyped up about these videos, but people get so upset about the videos from the opponents. NFL players, man, they are competent people.
I agree with you on the Giants side, but I did like the Eagles hype video, and I think it's something that the fans can take in and get pumped up by. And you do want a home field advantage on Saturday. It's not like if they didn't put out a hype video, the people would go to the game and sit on their hands. I believe it's going to be a packed, loud, raucous stadium.
They're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine.
But if you can move the needle even the littlest bit with a hype video, I think it's certainly well worth doing. And now we understand what It's a Philly thing was about on the swagwear leading up to the week. We didn't necessarily know ahead of time. The Eagles knew internally because they were going to put out this video, but now we understand the panderer in chief is playing.
Well, yeah, that's I always joke about Nick and his pandering, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't think it's going to help him win the game. I don't think it's going to help him lose a game. Eagles fans are going to show up anyway. I mean, they're going to be excited. They're going to, Eli Manning was joking about coming to the game, and he thought he'd never come to Philadelphia. This is a really, really difficult place to play. And that's another part of it, a really difficult place to play. And that doesn't go up or down because of some goopy hype video. It's always a really difficult place to play because the people are passionate about this football team. But it's fun, it's a social media thing. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, it's kind of an homage to the Eagle fans. They are that good. They've been that good. They travel that well and take it elsewhere. That's the thing that I liked about it more than anything else. The Sirianni clip of, hey, I'm getting the feeling we don't play a road game this year because the Eagle fans travel as well as they did. It's kind of a give back thing for the Eagles to their fans. So I appreciate it. I thought it was pretty damn well done. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac, the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. First up today, it's Mr. Positivity. Bob Groats from the Delco Times going to jump in and give us his upside. Oh, I think Groats. Quick prediction out of you and I. Groats says they win or they lose. Which way you going, Johnny Mac?
I'm going to say he says they win.
They win close or they win handily.
He's going to say they win close.
Okay.
He's going to say they win close. He's going to buy into the division rival 3-game nonsense. And but ask him if he's going to get really hyped over that hype video.
He's a big hype video guy. You're right. I got to ask him about that. But Bob Groats of the Delco Times is going to be our first guest a little bit later. Pat Leonard give us a New York perspective. He covers the Giants for the New York Daily News. He'll be on in hour number 2. But the Darth Vader of Eagles beat reporters, Bob Groats, next here on Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Game Show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post Game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
You got Birds 365 on the Football Friday before divisional round action between the Giants and the Eagles. Here to give us his insight from, I guess we got the breakfast nook look today. I like it. Bob Groats from the Delco Times jumps in with us. How you been, BG?
I'm doing pretty good, Jody. Hey, so you got a couple days off, huh? Last week, I did a show with Tone and John McMullen. You have trained them well.
Yeah, okay. There we go. Yeah.
One day off to have cancer surgery. But
that's yeah.
it wasn't quite a couple. But thanks for noticing the one day I was out. Thank you very much for that.
For God's sakes. I'm sorry, Jody. Yeah. Hang in there, man. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Jody's a trooper. We're worried about Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson. He's taking one day, man. What do we care?
Yeah,
These players got to be out there.
I don't. As tough as Lane Johnson is, I don't know how he's going to make it through this game. This is going to be amazing if he does. It'll be one of the all-time feats. It reminds me of when Jim McMahon was playing, and they would pick up his arm after he fell off and sew it back on. You know what I mean? And shoot him up with a painkiller at halftime. And somehow he made it through some games, but even he didn't last for long. So this is very much like that to me. And if he's not in there, it changes the way that they play offense. We've all seen that.
Yeah, but like Lane, said, real quick, Jody, Lane did not, I should bring up to people, Lane did not talk in the locker room yesterday, which is weird. He typically does, and he didn't want to talk. So just throw that in the back of people's mind. But go ahead, Jody. Sorry.
Don't, as you just pointed out, Bob, they used to do that with Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon would make it through the game. He paid a price down the road, but don't you think they're going to shoot him up enough to be able to get through the game? Well, what makes you think that he might have to come out of the game?
I just don't see how that type of thing, a sports hernia for a guy playing his position who has to torque and do. There's certain positions, and I'd have to look. I'd have to think about it to figure out, who would be better able to withstand that. And John has some examples of guys who played through it, but he was on all fours in that Cowboys game for about 5 minutes on the field. I think it totally ripped then. So I just can't. I can't believe that he's going to be out there, except that he's a real loyal team guy, and he's going to give it everything he got. All those cliches, but they're true of Lane Johnson. So that's why I don't think he's going to make it. I mean, and you know what? Just because he's on the all fours for 5 minutes, I mean, I'm not a doctor or anything, but he was in a lot of pain. I asked him about that too, and he told me it was really nasty. So I don't know. I mean, and that was earlier in the week too. And but he said he's ready to go. I got him for a second. He walked around the locker room yesterday with a ball. Remember that, John?
Yeah. Helmet. Yeah, he was getting his helmet.
He said he was going to be ready to go. Yeah. He said he feels good. He's going to be ready to go. But what is he supposed to say? So I'm sure not talking to the media is part of that competitive. He didn't want to give the Giants anything more to study or think about. And I think it's all along those lines. And by the way, I think Jalen Hurts is going to be okay. But that's going to be that'll be interesting too. Especially, the first time he takes off with the ball, and he's going to do it. That's
might
the way
be the
he
first
played.
play, man. He might pull it on the first play and say, "I'm back."
That's the way he plays. I mean, he can play in the pocket, but to do that an entire game, it's just not him. And that's not because he's not a pocket passer. It's just because he plays with a lot of instinct, and that tells him, if the pocket's collapsing and he's about to get sacked, it's time to get out.
Yeah, and I'm much more concerned about Lane from an uncertainty standpoint than Jalen. I think Jalen's going to be fine. Lane, I don't know. He mentioned Cam Jordan played with it, and he was talking to Cam Jordan about how to get through it. He said he doesn't want to take any painkillers, and that's why he was testing it on Wednesday. We'll see, but he will if he has to.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that, right?
Yeah,
and everybody, we don't know the degree of his injury, and I'm just guessing in that. But that's going to be that's going to be a big deal. And the other thing is, the Eagles, they played what one? I mean, Hurts, for example, has played one game in 4 weeks, something like that. I mean,
there'll probably be some rust maybe in the first couple series, but you get
the Giants already got going last week. Let's not forget that. People say, they beat a lousy team, and they did. A team with no
lousy defense. They beat a good team. I mean, that team's good offensively. Lousy defense.
Yeah,
and they took advantage of it. They deserve credit for it.
That's a lot of points for the Giants to put up there too, but that's a bad defense. But they've already played. They got those jitters out. You know, they're.
But isn't it better? A lot of people say that, Bob. Isn't it better not to play than to play? Like, people remember the last thing they saw them. The Giants were impressive, but the Eagles were sitting at home.
I think it's better to play. I especially for a team like the Eagles, especially for a guy like Jalen Hurts. And I understand you don't want him to get hurt in that, so you really couldn't do that. But I think it's better to play. Look at last year. Remember when the Eagles got real? They just outsmarted everybody in the league, and they had everybody test for COVID.
The COVID incident.
And they used that last regular season as a bye. You remember that?
Yeah, but
last regular season game was
they
a bye.
did. Yeah, they used the COVID. They manipulated everything. Now the Giants couldn't use the COVID stuff. They couldn't manipulate it like that.
No.
But
John,
they didn't play. But what I'm saying, Bob, is they didn't play anybody, and it worked out for them.
Yeah.
So I think it didn't work out for the Eagles just because Tampa at the time was a much better team.
Oh no, Tampa played some guys, and yeah, they were definitely better. But 31-0, that game was 31-0.
Yeah. Oh, they got destroyed in that game. But what I'm saying is the Giants used the same philosophy, and it worked out for them. They rested everybody in week 18 against the Eagles,
right?
And they were able to upset and get a playoff win. So
yeah,
it can work both ways. Is all I'm saying.
But one game in what, 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I'd rather be the number 1 seed, not playing while everybody's beating the what out of everybody else.
I don't know. With a young team, I have a bad feeling about this game. I think the Eagles are going to win, but I got a bad feeling.
Oh, you're right, McMullen. He's going down the competitive road. Yeah. I acknowledge that the Giants are improved from the team that the Eagles beat the snot out of 6 weeks ago in MetLife Stadium. The Giants have shown to be an improved team. But it's really based on 2 games. The win over the Colts, Indianapolis, which they needed to lock up a playoff spot, and they beat up on, talk about a guy with rust all over him, Nick Foles, not good. And then the win against Minnesota last week. So the Giants have improved by leaps and bounds because of 2 wins.
They got healthier. They got healthier too, Jody.
They get healthier.
They got a bunch of guys back that didn't play against the Eagles.
So Adoree Jackson and
he's a stud, isn't he?
Xavier
Who would you rather
McKinney.
have, Adoree Jackson or James Bradbury?
Are you even kidding? Why would you even go there, you fool? One of them made the All-Pro, not Pro Bowl, All-Pro.
Jordan
James
Love.
Bradford. You know who didn't make the All-Pro? Adoree Jackson. You know who else did make All-Pro?
Hold on. Bradbury wasn't All-Pro.
Yeah, it was second team.
The guy
second
who made All-Pro was James Bradbury.
Second team.
You just got to throw your hands up and say mea culpa, Bob.
How did he do it?
You've just been woefully wrong about Bradford.
Listen to me, Jody. Listen to me, Jody. He's like the third best cornerback on that team, 4th best, including Avante.
Damn, you're
wait, who's number 2?
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson he played better than anybody in that secondary. Maybe Avante, and he didn't get any. I mean, was he All-Pro or anything? No,
but
that tells you what the voters are looking at.
He missed 5 games.
They don't keep an eye on. Hey, I'm really disappointed in the voters.
He would have made the Pro Bowl certainly if he didn't get hurt. I don't know about All-Pro.
He missed 5 games, and he's tied for the interception lead. And he didn't just – he made plays. I mean, he had the best year of anybody in that secondary.
Yeah, Bradbury made some plays, Bob.
He made some plays in the first couple games, but tell me what he did. What has he done recently?
He had 17 pass breakups. 17. That's pretty good.
He had 3 interceptions
He had 3
in the first 4 weeks.
Which is pretty good. He had 17 pass breakups. He's second team All-Pro. Yeah, I'm with Jody on this one, Bob. You gotta raise the white flag. He had a damn good season.
You gotta give it up. Yeah, you've been questioning the guy all year, and he made the All-Pro. So you not only question him, you're questioning all your fellow media voters from the
Associated
Press. They don't watch the game.
Yeah, that you can do.
They don't see receivers running away from him. I mean,
neither one of you guys are going to have to worry
Jody,
about sending
hold
a
it.
text
Jody,
to
he
Rob
doesn't
Marty
even
to
cover.
get yourselves on that
Rob,
he doesn't
voting
even
list
cover a
since you now
number
just
one guy.
badmouthed it to no
I'm
end.
trying to get on that list.
Yeah, he
You got
doesn't
no shot
cover
in
a
the road.
number
You just
one.
said, go ahead and second guess the guys that are already on there.
By the
yeah,
way-
they're gonna let you in now. They're gonna let you join
Well,
the club.
no, I'm
Well,
not-
you're
I'm gonna-
sounding as foolish as Groats.
Hopefully Rob is listening to the show, so I'll make a statement to Rob. Somebody voted for Boston Scott as the returner. I mean, come on. You got to get that guy out of there. And I know he's from Philadelphia. You got to get that guy out of there. Get me in there. I mean, I love Boston Scott as well. The New York Giants don't love. He should be getting votes for the All-Pro team. There are some people, Jody, that shouldn't be on that list. Bob is right about that part. But Bradbury, he's wrong. Bradbury had a great season.
Not the way I would look to ingratiate myself into a position.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just
by
honest.
knocking and mocking those who already have that
I'm just
honor.
being honest. I'm not.
Okay,
I'm not,
you can be honest, but I'm telling you,
No,
I'm being honest with you. I don't think you're helping your cause.
Well, that's
Bradbury,
probably true. That's
Bradbury
usually
is a
true.
great. Can I
usually
throw
true.
this in again? Bradbury is a great guy. So
he's tremendous.
He's all pro, second team, great guy. He might even be first team all pro, great guy. But well, you know, some of these, this is gonna be fun to watch this game because Daniel Jones he's got he's into a little bit of a rhythm too, and the Eagles, for whatever reason, they struggle against quarterbacks that run, that break out of the pocket. Remember Kyler Murray, that game? I'm not saying Daniel Jones is Kyler Murray, but they struggle to contain guys like that. That's another component that I think will be interesting. If Daniel Jones isn't, I mean, if the Eagles don't rush really disciplined and keep him in the pocket, if he sees an opening and gets out there, that's going to be what do they call that? He's two-dimensional.
He's a dual threat.
Yeah.
Now Challen calls himself
if he
a
brings
triple
a two-dimensional game, that's going to be a problem, you know.
No, he's very athletic. People don't realize how.
And the Giants. Here's the other thing too. The Giants. I mean, they look at the Eagles team. They're looking at that and saying, "Oh, Jesus, James Bradbury, all team second pro, 9 Pro Bowl guys over there. Jalen Hurts, MVP candidate. You know, 14 wins. You know, and you know, but we're playing as a team right now, and look at us. It's kind of like that no name type of mentality. I think they're going to bring that into the game. And Brian Dable's he's a good coach.
He's a darn good coach.
I don't think they're going to beat themselves. This is going to be a tough game.
Let's talk about the coaching staff then, Bob, because I'm with you. I think Brian Dable is great. I think
and Kafka is pretty good too.
Kafka's good.
What he's done with a limited cast. I mean,
I think Wink Martindale's great. But, man, I mean, this Eagles staff seems to get short-sighted. They've done a pretty good job. Why does everyone just assume the Giants are going to outcoach the Eagles? Not everyone, but a lot of people think that's going to be the case.
Well, you look at the Eagles and look at the talent. I mean, they got all kinds of talent. That's why you look at you kind of wonder a little bit about the coaching staff, just because.
Is that their fault, though? That
you
they
think
have
they
a
should
lot
be
of talent?
dominating, you know, but defenses just don't dominate anymore. I mean,
No,
nobody
they
can
don't.
stop the run
They
anymore. You know, the
You're
Eagles
not
won the
allowed to
Super Bowl.
dominate. They legislated dominance out of the game.
Yeah,
You're not allowed to dominate.
Yeah, it's hard to play with the way the rules are, and that's not an excuse just for that. It's what teams are willing to do. And what was that? Was it Anthony Harris who was talking about that? You know,
Anthony, speaking
the
of
philosophy,
great guys. You know,
the
he's not gonna
philosophy
make
now
the
is
rules.
just don't give up the really big plays as much as you can. So, I mean, and then do something in the red zone. I don't know. The game, it really has changed. Quite frankly, I loved it in the days when Seth Joyner was playing with that 1991 defense.
So does
you
Seth.
really you could defend someone, and Eric Allen was playing corner, you know, and banging guys all the way down the field. And boy,
Can't do that though.
I miss
You
those
can't do
days.
it.
I know.
Yeah,
I
I'm with you. I miss it.
This
too,
is not
but-
defense now.
Yeah.
It's not defense.
The game is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
So let me ask you this: because this is one slight concern I have coming into this game from an Eagle perspective. You can still check a wide receiver at the line of scrimmage, but it's got to be the line of scrimmage. It's 5 yards, and then you better get your hands off them, because if you don't, they're going to call illegal contact, and they're ready, willing, and able to drop that flag. So it's not going to be like Eric Allen riding the guy all the way down the 25 yards down the field. That's done. That's gone. That's history.
In fairness, Jody, they've been letting them go a little bit more in the playoffs.
More than 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then that makes
Right.
my question even more poignant. Will Jonathan Gannon do any of that this week? Because a lot of the Giants' success in these two much improved games they had are 3-step drop, quick release, get the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands quickly. Richie and Hodgins making good quick moves, catching the ball, trying to get a little run after catch. The Eagles almost never play press. They never let their corners get up and get in a guy's face on the line of scrimmage. Should they do that this week?
I think you'll see some run blitzes, and if there's run blitzes, you'll see some guys right up on receivers. Yeah, I think a lot of that's not who they are. So they're a team that embraces that don't let them get behind you philosophy. You know, make them take the train, not the plane. So,
but the Giants were a blitzing team until this week, and then all of a sudden they weren't a blitzing team. So Wink Martindale showed that you can get away from your main philosophy in a specific game if you think doing quote unquote the opposite is what will work better. Will Jonathan Gannon have that same flexibility?
But did you see the mismatch they had with Dexter Lawrence on that Minnesota center? I mean, he was lifting him up and throwing him on the ground like every play. So
Dexter was mic'd up on what's the old HBO show that's now on Showtime? I forget.
Yeah, he just killed that guy.
Yeah,
I felt bad for the guy.
The
guy hung in there and kept taking his hits, but I don't know how he
Dexter said, "You hugged me more than my girlfriend inside the NFL." Yeah, he wrecked that game, and he's not going to be able to do that. He's not going to be able to do that against the Eagles because it's Jason Kelsey and Landon Dickerson and Isaac Seumalo, and And by the way, Dexter's a great player, but they're great players too. So it's going to be more. He's going to get some wins, but it's not going to be complete in total dominance.
Landon Dickerson and Dexter Lawrence is the matchup to look when those.
Yeah, those are two strong guys, man.
Yeah, Landon has had a tremendous year. If you ask me, I mean, Lane's had a good year, and you know he's voted first team All Pro. He's got a reputation. Landon Dickerson I think he had the best year of anybody out there. You know, Kelsey.
Kelsey. I think, I think the most underrated guy on that offensive line every year
is Kelsey.
Seumalo.
Oh, Seumalo.
I think Seumalo had a great year. I think he should have been in the Pro Bowl, and Landon should have been the alternate. That's what I think.
I don't know. Landon just dominated people.
He does. Well, here's the thing about Landon. Landon is so physical and so strong. When he dominates somebody, it's like one of those clips that Baldy will put up and everybody will make a big deal out. He's pancaking this guy. But I think Isaac is more
consistent. He's doing it a lot. Yeah. Isaac is more of a technician.
Yeah, exactly.
Landon Dickerson, I mean, he just destroys things.
He does. Like when he destroys people.
Looks like a pickup truck or a Mack truck hitting a building, you know.
That is a great matchup.
High speed.
Because Lawrence is a great player. And Landon's one of the few players that can stand up to him strength-wise. It is an interesting matchup.
And oh, by the way, AJ Brown. This is what the Eagles got AJ Brown for too, to give him to give him this swagger coming into the playoffs. I don't see. I mean, to me, he's the reason that the Eagles are the favorite in this game. You know, and the quarterback. But AJ Brown, there's nobody over there that can. They can double him, and he's going to catch balls. He's going to get open. And so that his swagger, if anything happens to him, if something happens to that foot or leg or something and he goes out, they got big problems.
And I think they will double him. I think they'll treat him much like the same way they treated Jefferson last week, which means the under-over for Dallas Goedert receiving yards is 50.5. Oh, I think he could be over by halftime. How about you?
I know somebody else who thinks that too. You know somebody like that, John? Can't really say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't really say on the air. Your sentiment is shared by somebody on that team. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah. I don't know if the Giants, though, are going to – I think the Giants are going back to their normal way of defense because they want to hit Jalen Hurts. They want to test that shoulder. So I don't think they're going to sit back and
you can't
umbrella coverage.
But you can't just focus on putting hits on Jalen Hurts. I mean, you'll lose the game.
It's kind of Winks.
I mean,
MO.
You have to have.
Well, they're screwed. That's the problem with playing the Eagles. Well, even let's say they do play AJ the same as they played Jefferson last week. Well, then you got to deal with Devontae Smith, and you got to deal with Dallas Goedert, and you got to deal with Miles, and you got to deal with Jalen Hurts running the football in the zone reads. I mean, that's the problem. That's the difficulty of playing this team. You can try to take away AJ Brown, but Devontae's going to kill you. Yeah. Dallas is going to kill you. So.
I'll tell you this too. I don't even think you can take away AJ with a double team. He's so strong. He's going to find a way to get open, and that always open sign.
He's always open.
He's got 2 of those on his locker now.
Because he's always open.
Jody, two of those signs now hanging. I mean, there'll be a third one after they win. I'm sure, but he took the wide receivers out during the bye, and he took them bowling. And apparently he's a really good bowler in that.
Yeah.
But
he nailed that strike. Did you see?
We only see the guy. We see his swagger and stuff, but he's the ultimate team guy too. Yeah, I mean, we went over with these guys in that.
Who has the most swagger on the Eagles, Bob? Who has the most swagger?
Oh, AJ for sure. AJ.
I disagree. You know who has the most swagger? CJ Gardner-Johnson. That guy's insane. He thinks he's the best in the world. He's not, but he thinks it. He is just – I never thought I'd see anybody with more energy than Brandon Graham, but he's got more energy than Brandon Graham. He's got so much energy. He annoys people. Jalen Hurts was like, oh, you got some energy today, and walked away from him. He's got so much energy that he annoys people. He's got the most swagger on the team.
I don't think that's swagger.
We probably have different definitions of swagger.
Yeah.
Swagger to me isn't defined solely by volume.
Oh, no, it's not just the volume.
You talk and how loud you talk. It's the way you carry yourself. Yeah. And I would absolutely say that AJ Brown has more.
Yeah. John, I think you're
he's
talking
the best
about
trash talker. Gardner-Johnson is easily the best trash
talker. He's
talker.
Definitely annoying. No, I'm talking about confidence in oneself. That's what I'm talking about. Nobody has more confidence. That's my definition of swag. Nobody has more confidence in themselves than CJ Gardner-Johnson.
AJ Brown, definitely.
Yeah. AJ's got tons of it. Jalen has tons of it.
Yeah.
Brandon has tons of it. But I'm saying if you wanted me to pick the guy who has the most confidence in himself, it's CJ Gardner-Johnson.
All right.
Yeah. He even talks, to the head coach, as Nick said.
Yeah. Sorry to say I'm with Groats on this one.
Here he is. Here's AJ. He takes the guys out bowling, and he's telling them, hey, and this is the obvious, but he's telling them in a friendly setting, you guys, you're not this could be it for us this week. If we don't do this, that, and the other thing, this is what we've done. It doesn't mean anything. If we don't do this, that, and the other thing, it's over. And you may never play in the playoffs again. You don't want to do that,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They got to take advantage of this
he's
situation.
Doing that with the young guys, the young guys that haven't been in this and telling them what it's going to be. That guy, I mean, he goes above and beyond. I mean, what a bargain he was. That's the best offseason acquisition in the league, AJ Brown, without a doubt. And,
I agree.
And there have been a lot of good ones by teams. And the Eagles, Chauncey is
they might have number 2 in Hassan Reddick. They might have one and
Chauncey too. You're right. How can I forget Hassan? You're right. But AJ Brown, man, I mean that's the creme de la creme in terms of off-season acquisitions.
Speaking of Hassan Reddick, Evan Neal, the offensive tackle that the Giants took in the first round this past draft from Alabama, has been hit or miss. He's had some really good games, and he's had some games where he's looked like a wet behind the ears rookie.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that the better the player he goes against kind of dictates how he's evaluated after the game. Now he's going up against the guy who had the second most sacks in the league this season. You think Hassan Reddick's going to abuse Evan Neal on Saturday?
That could happen. That could happen. I don't think that. I think that big tackle. I think he struggles against the littler guys too. The real quick guys. And Reddick is really. I don't know how. I rarely see people that just explode at the end of the year like him. It's like he's got another gear. He's not worn down or anything, but he's a great studier of film. Maybe these tackles are getting worn down and he sees another little flaw and that helps him get to the passer. But he's been unbelievable. He really has been. He's been like Von Miller the year that Denver won the Super Bowl. I mean, for the Eagles, he has. And just really bringing it off that edge. You can count on him for one or two every game and a couple of pressures and forcing everything to the other side.
Yeah, and he's the best strip sack artist.
He hasn't had one of those for a while, has he?
One of the things going back to the offseason, and Jody knows this, Bob, I was a little bit concerned about how undersized the Eagles looked on defense. But we talk about the evolution of the game. Nobody takes advantage of it. Like, if I were the Giants and I had Evan Neal, who struggles in pass protection, but is this big, powerful guy, I'd run right at him. I'd run right at Hassan Reddick and try to take him out of the game that way. But teams don't do that because they don't practice it. They're not good at it. And if they do run, it's going to be inside zone or outside zone. I don't. So the Eagles were smart by realizing it's not that big of a deal anymore to have an undersized guy in that position.
Yeah, and like we were saying before, nobody stops the run. They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care. I mean, the run, the only time they're worried about stopping the run is if they have to play catch up, in the fourth quarter. And then you gotta run blitz a couple times to get the ball back. But I mean, it's I don't get that, especially maybe the Eagles come out and do that with Hurts. I mean, that would be a pretty good idea, don't you think? Especially against a team like the Giants.
Well, yeah, teams run it in that fashion, with Jalen and the zone read stuff, but they don't go straight ahead anymore. They just don't. They just don't.
I mean, that could benefit them, but but the Eagles, they are what they are, and they got to get the ball to A.J. Brown. That's where they start. Get the ball to AJ, and also get Hurts out there, get Hurts in space. And then if they do those two things, they'll win this game.
Agreed. So give me a final score, Bob Groats. How
I think
easy is it going to be?
Yeah, I think it's going to be like 21-20.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think
I predicted Groats would say it would be close.
And I think it's going to be one of those deals too where like the Giants miss an impossible field goal at the end, trying to win the game. It's going to be a nail biter.
Guy out for a 63-yarder.
Graham, that's a hell of a kicker. Right. You don't want to be in that position because he might nail that stinking thing.
No,
they have a hell of a kicker.
My projection is that the kick is towards the I-95 goalpost, where it's toughest to kick. And the wind is really swirling.
I'll tell you what,
it's impossible to make a long one.
63 is way too long. But if it's 56 to win the game, the Eagles are in trouble.
I don't know.
56 is doable these days in the NFL. 56
oh my God, it's become
not outrageous.
Yeah, if it's 56 to win the game,
no,
I would be very wary of
not
Graham
towards
Cano.
the I-95 goalpost, guys.
I would be
It'll
very
just
wary.
Die.
All right, now is that determined by the coin flip?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Because you decide whether you want the ball, and then the other
Yeah.
team decides which end they want the. So will Sirianni give that up for the second half by deferring?
Oh boy, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Because
Now,
Bob Groats is telling us the game will be decided by the fact that the team having to kick the game-winning field goal will be going toward I-95, which is more difficult. So that, to me, outweighs the whole, well, you can get it back and forth between the second half and the first half. Should Sirianni take that into consideration?
Oh, no.
I'm trying here. You guys never want to listen to me on that. That's so
the assistant GM, now the assistant GM.
Jody, you know better than to do an
Alec
intellectual
Halaby
joke
says
on me.
no. Yeah. Alec Halaby says
good to
no.
know that Alex Halaby is going to decide the outcome of the Eagles season this year. I'm glad you've gone on record with that, John. John just told us that Alex Halaby is going to dictate a decision that's so important it may decide the game before it's ever started. It's coming down to the analysis of Alex.
I never thought about that, but you know what? You don't want to be going that way. If you don't want to be driving.
Well,
that
first
way
of all,
Bob's
score might be the last number, and Bob's score might be correct. The first number is going to be woefully low. They won't be in a position to where they're going to lose to a Graham Gano.
It might be 22-20. You're right.
Oh, he's getting it up to 22. Yeah. Good job, John. We appreciate the optimism and the confidence, Mr.
Yeah.
Groats.
I think it's going to be a struggle, though. The Giants are warmed up. The Eagles have got a lot of young guys. They're getting in there. I don't think they're going to play horribly, but I think they are going to make a few mistakes. You know.
Well, they're going to make some mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah. What
they're
I haven't
be
really
perfect.
I mean, if the Eagles make a big play early, you know what the link is like. All of a sudden, all of a sudden, Daniel Jones won't hear the signals. They'll be calling timeouts. He'll be doing this, to get and he'll be calling his own plays. And the over and under on false starts is what, 2.5?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Brian Daboll will not fall apart like Mike McDaniel. I guarantee that. Well,
I think we can all agree on that. All right, Mr. Groats, feel free to go get yourself a bowl of cornflakes or whatever else you're having for breakfast.
I'm waiting for my Plexiderm to come in, Jody. I hope it gets here before the game. Yeah.
At Bob Groats, StelcoTimes.com. Make sure you read Bob. He's got, by the way, he's got a nice piece up there on James Bradbury. Looking forward to the Giants game.
Yeah.
And some Lane Johnson info as well.
No. And for those of you confused, Bob really likes James Bradbury. He just doesn't think he's a star player, which has been woefully wrong.
That's a good way of putting it. I think I don't think he's a star. Yeah. But if you're watching this, James, don't take anything I say seriously.
He's not a star. He's a
All right, I'll see you guys. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Bob Groats here with us on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. We're going to give the up the turnpike look in hour number 2. Pat Leonard's been good enough to come on with us a couple times of late because the Giants and Eagles have played a couple times of late. They've got one more game to play against each other, and it's kind of the most important one since it is the playoffs. Pat Leonard, Daily News, going to join us in hour number 2 here on Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
Sogano helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
He's Mac, I'm Mac. That makes us Mac and Mac on Birds 365 as the countdown is on to kick off for the Giants and the Eagles Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field, 8:15. A little late for Johnny's taste, but
yes, it is.
Fun Saturday night with the Eagles and the Giants playing for the third time. And yes, forget the noise about it's tough to beat a team three times. No, it's actually about a 680 winning percentage of when it happens in the NFL since 1970, which is a pretty large number. JM, I want to ask you this because I don't know the answer to the question. I don't know the answer to it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's a difficult question. Bob Groats made me think about it when talked about Hassan Reddick being able to speed past Evan Neal. The Eagles led the National Football League in sacks this year. They put up the most sacks that the Eagle organization has ever put up and came up, 2 sacks from the greatest?
2 sacks short. Extra game, of course. But,
right. One extra game. So even if they'd gotten it, it would have had an asterisk next to it. But to say the Eagles had a phenomenal season at getting to the quarterback would be a blatant understatement. Of the 70 sacks the Eagles got, how many do you think included a stunt up front, a game, so to speak, guys crossing over, different names for basically the same idea? Usually you think of it as a pass rush, mano a mano, you beat your guy inside, outside, whatever. But the crossover, the stunt, the game that guys play. Because I remember clearly a couple of Hassan Reddick sacks this year, which he actually got inside.
Yeah.
They ran a stunt and ran a game. People would, part of it is the surprise of it because Hassan is a little undersized for an NFL defensive end. So you wouldn't think you'd run him inside. Well, they do. And usually he beats whoever the inside guy is because he's not nearly quick enough to deal with a guy like Hassan Reddick. That's just another thing that Jonathan Gannon doesn't get enough credit for. The defensive line games and stunts that he plays and he moves around and he makes work. Nobody gives him near enough credit for it. How many do you think out of 70 were actually games?
Not probably 20-ish, I would say, somewhere in that range in the early 20s. It's funny. We talked to Josh Sweat about this after Chicago game, I think, because they were pretty impressive that game with stunts, and it's usually end tackle or tackle end, and he was joking about it. He said we don't like to run them because we prefer to beat people one-on-one. But when it's sort of like a curveball when they break them out. And yeah, Reddick's really good at it. Sweat's really good at it. J-Bond's really good at it. But it's funny, they don't like to do it. And I'm talking about the players. Because we talk about swagger.
You want the mano-to-mano challenge,
yeah,
sure.
They have immense confidence in their ability to beat people one-on-one. But yeah, they're really good at it. They don't do it that much, but it's a curveball, and when he throws the curveball, they're generally very, very good at it. So that's one of the things, Gannon gets all kinds of criticism. You bring up Reddick. We've been talking about Reddick. One of the things is dropping into covers with Reddick. And I've heard media people say this. You can't drop Hassan Reddick in coverage. And I make the baseball comparison. Does a pitcher throw a fastball 100% of the time, even if he throws 100 miles an hour? No, it's absurd. And the ironic thing is, in his career, Hassan Reddick has never dropped less than he has this year. Never dropped less.
Really?
Like 63 times. Never dropped. Now, early in his career, he dropped a lot because Arizona was using him
as a linebacker, right?
Using him in a poor way. But even since he turned into just an edge rusher, it's the lowest amount he's ever dropped in his career. But, people have these narratives but getting back to your original point, yeah, it's a curveball for them, but it's a very effective curveball for them.
Right. If you wanted the true number, it would be the percentage of sacks that a team gets. How many of those come? Maybe it's an unfair question. I'm sorry I asked it of you, but let's say you're exactly right that it's 20. Well, it's 20 out of 70, which means the percentage is 28%. I'm just doing quick division in my mind, and I'm not sure that's right, but go with it. How many other teams get home 28% of the time of the sacks that they get during a season? I'm going to bet you they're right at the top of the league in that category as well. And that is a feather in, for me, Jonathan Gannon's cap, which I don't think he gets enough credit for. I got to run this one other one by you. I'm in total shock. I put in action already this morning. I thought for sure that Boston Scott's anytime touchdown was going to be decreased. I bet it last time and got 3-1. I was a little surprised I got 3-1 in the last game, Giants and Eagles. I thought for sure it had to come down because he did it again. The Eagles scored how many touchdowns the last game against the Giants, John?
Just one, right?
One. Who scored it?
And Boston Scott.
So he's the only guy who scored a touchdown last time. They got 5 stinking field goals. One touchdown was Boston Scott. So I checked today. It's over 3-1. The odds have actually gone up on the Boston Scott touchdown. You've said this a couple times. Don't know if it's just a McMullen opinion or it's an advised McMullen opinion that the Eagles kind of like the whole stick it to the Giants with Boston Scott as the giant killer thing. That is enough for me to believe it's going to happen again. If they get inside the 10, they're going to give it to Boston Scott again. How do you let the number go up? It's 330 to 370 plus on both sides.
My only assumption with that is that, the Eagles aren't going to mess around early, trolling the Giants in the playoffs. They're going to try to win the game. And Boston's not their best option to win the game in the backfield. So from that standpoint, logically, maybe it should go up a little bit. But if it's the game in the second half that I think it's going to be, that's where I think the trolling part comes in. So, if Bob is right, if Bob Groats is right, and it's going to be a 21-20 game, he's probably not going to score. If I'm right and it's going to be a wider margin, I'm pretty sure he's going to score probably late in the game. And yeah, I think the Eagles enjoy it. I think they enjoy it.
Right. But last game when they were just slightly ahead, who got the touchdown?
Yeah, but they weren't concerned about that game. They weren't concerned about that game. And
They were concerned enough to bring Jalen Hurts back from an injury after he sat out for 2 weeks.
No, I mean they knew
concerned?
they knew they had to win the game. What I'm saying is the box score at the end indicates it was closer than it really was inside the game. People forget that game was 19-0, and they dropped 3 interceptions, and that was basically into the fourth quarter. And then you had the lull. And whatever. I mean, that's what sort of time does to people. And they look at the box score and they say, oh, that was really close. They dominated that game. They never felt they were never in fear, I shall say, in that game. Not fear is probably a bad word, too, because football teams don't like that word. But they were never concerned. How shall I say it? They're going to try to win the game in the playoffs. So if it is close, I don't think you're going to see a lot of Boston, Scott.
But do you think Miles is, and we've been dealing with these numbers of percentages, and we readily admit we don't know exactly what they are or even what they mean. You just have your own concept of what it is. Do you think that, what would you put Miles's percentage at right now?
I think Miles is healthy. Miles ditched the knee brace. I think the extra week helped him. He ditched it for week 18. So he wore it in the New Orleans game, didn't wear it in the Giants game. They had him on a pitch count, same as I don't think he's on a pitch count in this game. I'm not going to say the Eagles aren't going to use Kenny Gainwell because that's their third down back. That's their hurry up back. That's who they believe in. So it's still going to be that sort of committee approach, but before he was on a pitch count, and that is no longer going to be the case.
The Boston Scott touchdown came when the Eagles were up 3-0. The game was far from over at that point. They may have had confidence in their ability to win it, but the scoreboard had not gotten to the point where you say, when they were up 19-0 and they kind of let their foot off their necks, then you can say it. When it's 3-0 in the first quarter, I don't think you could say, the Eagles already had that one in the book.
What I'm saying is they had no doubt they were going to win that football game. They are not going into this game with the same thought process that they were going into that game. They knew the Giants weren't going to play their players, their key players. They knew they had to win the game. They knew they were going to win the game. Just sort of rolling out the balls, so to speak. If
so the Eagles are less confident this time than they were 2 weeks ago.
No, it's not less confident. They know the Giants are going to play to win the game. They knew the Giants weren't going to play to win the game going into week 18. They knew the Giants weren't going to play to win the game. That changes the philosophy. They knew they had to win the game, but they knew they would win the game because they were playing a bunch of backups and Davis Webb was the starting quarterback. That's different, Jody. That's different. Now they're playing a playoff game with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams and Adoree Jackson and Xavier McKinney. These are all good players who weren't playing. They weren't playing. The Eagles knew they weren't playing. So the sense of urgency wasn't nearly as great, and they knew they were playing their starters because they had to play their starters, and they didn't want to play their starters, but they knew they were playing their starters, so they knew, we're going to win this game. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Just glad that Reed Blankenship fell on that onside kick, because if they had lost that game with this confident, we just need to show up and put our helmets out there on the field, as you're making it sound, that was their mindset for that game. Wow, that would have been a
19-0, dropped 3 interceptions. And by the way, Miles was on a pitch count then. He's no longer on a pitch count. 19-0, dropped 3 interceptions. Pat will tell you.
But the Giants got an onside kick on with under 2 minutes to go, down by 6 points. If they had recovered it, then you got to at least say they got a chance to win the game. And if it was as lopsided as the Eagles had decided it, sounds to me like you believe they decided it before they ever took the field for the game on Sunday. If they had not come away with a win, man, that would look bad for all parties involved. But it is a whole new ballgame. You're right. The Giants are playing everybody. The Eagles are playing everybody but Avante Maddox. There's nothing they can do about that. You and I have our beliefs of what level the two-star Eagle questionable players are going to be able to play at. Hurts and Lane Johnson. The Giants look like an all-go except for maybe Ojulari, and we'll get a latest update from our next guest on the Giants defensive end, who is listed as questionable. Other than that, the Giants are healthy too. So it's two pretty damn healthy teams who'll face off on Saturday. Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News, Giant beat reporter, is going to join us next here on Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
You got Maga Mac there on Birds 365. Appreciate you streaming on in. While you're at it, go ahead, hit that like button. I know you don't really like us, but I'm asking you to do it. Come on, I got two black eyes. Cut me some slack here on Birds 365. We got the handsome Pat Leonard joining us from North Jersey to give us a giant perspective for this. All right, Leonard, let's cut to the chase. We had you on a couple times this year, Giants-Eagles matchups.
A couple times it seems like in a month. Yeah, Pat coming through for us.
Man. Well, wait, I have to ask you a question first. Jody, you look like a Giants fan who bought a ticket to this game and is sitting in the 700 level of a blowout. What happened, man?
Little surgery involved on the top of my head that had effects coming down through my face. Oh, believe me, I looked worse earlier in this week. You're getting the condensed or cleaned up version.
So you're not tailgating early. Okay. No, well, I'm glad to hear you're okay and on the mic.
And my wife didn't do this either. It was a surgeon who did it by putting staples in my head. But I've already explained it to everybody else. I'll text you later and tell you what the hell happened. The Giants are showing some confidence this week. A lot of too much being made of the Giants having a good time at practice, dancing a little bit. Looks like their confidence is there going into the game, which if that's the way they want to feel, more power to them. But then you can't also play the underdog card. You got to go one way or the other. We can play with the Eagles or, wow, we're being disrespected because we're the underdog. And are they trying to walk that fine line between the two, or do they really believe they're going to walk into Lincoln Financial Field and win the game on Saturday?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Jody. I think this is the first time I've seen the Giants act like a team that's playing with house money. Like they don't like that idea. They don't like the narrative. They don't like the idea that people say they shouldn't have been here. But that was the first time, and they dance at practice all the time. It's nothing new, but it was an interesting looseness to them that showed you they are well aware they weren't supposed to be here. They weren't even supposed to be in the last game, let alone beat the Vikings on the road. So I think they view it as a little bit of an advantage that they feel no pressure. And that doesn't mean they're going to win the game. It doesn't mean the game's going to be close, but compared to even how they finished the year, right, guys? I mean, it's not like they were beating teams down the second half of the season. They were losing a lot of games.
Yeah.
There was a point there where it looked like they might not get in despite starting 6-1. So I think it's more of a looseness that Brian Daboll has cultivated. And frankly, I think early in the year, it wasn't always the best thing. I mean, their free safety, Xavier McKinney, just went loose on the bye week and busted up his hand and missed the second half of the season. Those are the dangers of the things that you run into when you don't run a tight ship. But now that the players have responded, the team's gotten healthier, it looks like an advantage. So it's more about like where your perspective is and what time of the year it is, I think.
One of that, the emotion part of it, Pat. I mean, we've seen this in the NFL playoffs before with numerous teams. You get the upset in the first round. It's like, you haven't won in the playoffs for a while. It's such a big moment for a particular franchise, in this case, the Giants.
Yeah.
And then you got to come back the next week against a better team. And, the emotion only lasts so long. Any thought to that part of it where, it was such, people have called it like a Super Bowl level win because it's been so long for this organization in the playoffs. And all of a sudden, oh, by the way, it's a short week and you got to go face the number 1 seed on the road. That's your reward.
Yeah. I think there's a danger to that. I frankly, not to rain on the Giants parade. I mean, they deserve to celebrate that win, but they weren't acting like they've been there before, which I never think is a good quality. I mean, it's a proud franchise with 4 Super Bowls acting like they won a 5th when they beat the Vikings. I think that from an Eagles standpoint and from an objective standpoint, you do have to rein that in quickly because yes, you deserve to celebrate that, especially because of expectations from people like me on the outside who picked them to win 3 games, and even from their own front office, which was operating this season as if it was year 1 of a rebuild. And that's still what they view it as.
Yeah.
So I think there is a danger a little bit to not turning the page on Minnesota. I do think they've done that, John. I think what you're hitting on, though, is I think people forget how badly the Eagles beat them at MetLife. And I know the Giants weren't fully healthy in that game. Saquon Barkley had the shoulder, but the fact of the matter is, I might have told you guys this before on here.
Yeah, you did. You said they were shook.
Oh my God. I mean, I've never heard the Giants say an opposing team was that much better than them, let alone one of their biggest rivals.
Yeah.
Is very telling. All right. You know this certainly better than us. One of the reasons why I'd love to say, oh, the Giants are overconfident. The Giants celebrated too much. Giants aren't coming into this game with the right mindset. But on the offensive side and the overall side, I'm not as worried because Daniel Jones does seem like a straight and narrow guy, that he doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low. He stays pretty balanced. I know Brian Dable does the same exact thing. He's been around. He knows, all right, you celebrate, now you come back to earth, you narrow focus, he'll get that done. Who's the defensive leader for this Giants team? If you got faith that come game time, the quarterback will pull it together, the coach will pull it together, who's the guy who's got to pull it together on defense for the Giants?
Dexter Lawrence, their defensive tackle, their nose tackle, second team All-Pro AP this season. The awards have been rolling in. It's been valid, or it's been, he earned it. He has taken another step this year with Andre Patterson as his position coach coming over from Minnesota. And in Wink Martindale's scheme, they've really isolated him on the inside and let him go at centers and win consistently. He's told me privately before, I don't think there's a center in the league that can block me. Now, I will say this, Jason Kelce can block him, and he's shown it, right? So most centers can't block him. He might be playing against the one who can. That's part of the reason the Giants are in a little bit of trouble. The interesting thing is when they last played, their pass rush actually was the only thing that was somewhat encouraging about the Giants' performance. Even though they got their butts kicked, they were able at times to get to Jalen Hurts. So that's the key here. I mean, Julian Love's their leading tackler at safety by a mile, but the leader is Dexter Lawrence. He's the guy who early in the season, it was Saquon Barkley on offense. This is in the first 3, 4, 5 games. It was Saquon Barkley doing the damage on offense, and it was Dexter Lawrence just leaving opposing coaches and GMs scratching their heads walking out of MetLife Stadium. So it has to be him.
Yeah. And he wrecked that game against Minnesota. Just tremendous pressure. But again, bad interior line. This week it's Jason Kelce, Landon Dickerson, Isaac Seumalo. And even, Dexter's going to win his reps. He's a great player, but it's going to be a little bit more even.
Exactly.
You would think moving forward. I do want to give this offense credit, though. They're getting defensive coordinators fired. I mean, they were really impressive against Minnesota. Very bad defense. We all know that. They play a very similar scheme to Philadelphia, though. Now, the Eagles do it much better. Do you think that helps the Giants, though, seeing at least the same type of sentiment on the defensive side of the football?
Good question. I think it helps them from a standpoint of just having the ultimate validation of what works against that type of scheme and these types of zone coverages. I think that one thing I'm looking for to see whether they can replicate it is, so the Vikings have a pretty good pass rush, even though their secondary is terrible. Mm-hmm. And the Giants, they were susceptible the first time they played Minnesota. So their second time they played the Vikings, when Evan Neal, the right tackle, was going up against some of their good pass rushers, and when he started losing a rep or when there was any pressure in the interior, you could tell the game plan was for Daniel Jones to immediately take off. And that's why you saw him run so often. Not only do they design runs for him, they were protecting against losing reps in the pass protection game by sending Daniel out immediately. And I think the Eagles are a much faster defense than the Vikings are. And so I'm not sure if that's going to work. If it does, if they do that, because they're going to have to, let's face it, the Eagles pass rush not only is strong, it's deep. So that rushing 4 element, if they can get there to Jones, I don't know if he's going to have the same type of record-setting ability and performance on the ground as well as throwing through the air against Philly, just because there's a lot more speed on the back end. But I definitely think you got to look for those crossers. You got to look for Richie James and Darius Slayton being cleared out across the field. That is one of their bread and butter plays right now against these zones where the slot corner or the linebacker carries the seam route, and then the slot comes underneath. Avonte Maddox's absence could rear its head in the passing game because the Giants just ran those crossers and hit the Vikings to death on them, frankly, and that's a matchup to watch.
All right, last week, Daniel Jones ran it 17 times. That's a lot. The first time these two teams played, he ran it 4 times. He didn't run it badly. 4 for 26 is still a nice percentage per carry, but it's not 17. We just guess that the number is going to be somewhere in the middle between 4 and 17. Which is it going to be closer to?
I think it'll probably be closer to 17, but I don't think it will be as effective as it was in Minnesota. I think this year the Giants did a lot, especially early, to protect Daniel Jones from himself. And the offense has evolved in part because Jones has succeeded and earned more of the trust in the staff for them to lean on him more and more, to the point where in his last 2 starts against the Colts and the Vikings, not only have they scored 38 and 31 points respectively, but Jones has put the offense on his back. This is no longer Saquon Barkley's offense with Jones complimenting him. Now it's the other way around. That said, so because that is, there's nothing. They're not playing for tomorrow. They're playing for today. And Jones's legs are just as important to their offense as his arm. And I think you're going to see them try to relieve pressure with his legs. I think you're going to see them design runs. All that said, though, Jody, as much as there's not a lot of focus on him because he's no longer the focal point of the Giants offense, at least recently, I think Saquon Barkley is the key to them winning this game, because look at Washington and how they beat the Eagles at the Link. They controlled the clock. They ran the ball. They kept the Eagles offense off the field and then forced some turnovers when they were on. If the Giants don't run the ball, so that includes both Barkley and Jones, they're going to give the Eagles too many possessions. So that goes along with running Jones, but also running Barkley to keep their offense on the field and Hurts off of it.
Yeah, time of possession, I think, is going to be really key. It's you got to shorten the game if you're the Giants, and you got to have these not only long, sustained drives, but you got to score touchdowns, not field goals. I do think, Pat, one of the most interesting parts of the upset in Minnesota from the Giants' perspective was Wink Martindale throwing the curveball. We all know Wink, right? He's going to blitz from the buses. He's coming. All of a sudden, he shows up. He's got umbrella coverage on Justin Jefferson. Minnesota still moved the ball.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. And I think a lot of people say, well, he might do the same thing to A.J. Brown. My thought process is, no, he's going to want to test Jalen Hurts. What's your feeling in that shoulder? I think we're going to get the blitzing Wink Martindale.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to see more of his league-leading 44% blitz rate. That's a next-gen stats number, way higher than I think the second-ranked defense in the league was the Dolphins at like 38. And we're going to see more of that than the 22% blitz rate we saw against the Vikings that you alluded to. They have the luxury of playing Kirk Cousins, who can't run. And that was a very savvy and interesting and surprising strategy from Martindale, because he's known for being aggressive. But not only that, if Azeez Ojulari doesn't play, he was actually one of the more promising pass rushers and performers in that blowout loss to the Eagles when the starters played back in early December. And especially if he doesn't play, Wink's just going to have to generate pressure somehow. Now, because he's going to try to generate pressure, that doesn't mean he can just bring the house and empty the tank all the time, because Hurts is just too good. This is an Eagles passing offense that not only is way better than anybody expected coming into the year, but he gets the ball out quickly, and they know that Wink's coming, right? So they don't always know from where, but they'll anticipate that. And so will it be effective for the Giants? I'm not sure, but I think he has to go back to his bread and butter. And one thing Wink does believe, John, is that if you're going to go out, you got to go out your way. So that was the most interesting part of him abandoning the blitz against Minnesota, but it just shows how good of a coach he is that he's scheme specific to a game.
Pat, you mentioned if Ojulari plays. He is the only Giant on the injury report, was listed as questionable yesterday. If he can't go, who's going to get those reps at DE?
Yeah, so it would be Philadelphia's own Jihad Ward, veteran, but he is more of a run stopper, early game, busting into the backfield. When you're talking about getting there late in the game and those pass rush reps, there's a couple young guys. Tamon Fox is a rookie they really like, an undrafted free agent. O'Shane Zimenez is really, his role when he comes in is a pin your ears back pass rusher. That's really the one thing he does at a level that gets him on the field. And then this is something maybe to watch out for. Quincy Roche, who played 3 years at Temple in college. I could see him being possibly elevated from the practice squad. And so Joe Shane and the Giants have been doing this thing lately where they elevated Davis Webb early in the or late in the regular season just to give him a game check before he ended up playing against Philly. In Minnesota, they elevated a couple guys, Jayshon Corbin and Khalil Pimpleton, just to get him a game check, but they were healthy scratches.
Pimp played last week. I didn't even know that.
No, he didn't play. He was just on the active. Yeah.
Okay.
So he got that fat, like 40,000, whatever.
A lot
check.
of teams did that, Pat. It was interesting.
It's
Just
a good look.
getting guys.
So they're going to do.
I remember him from Hard Knocks. He was one of the stars of Hard Knocks, and then the Giants picked him up. I said, all right, I'll root for this guy. He's got some, talk about swag. He had some swag.
The pimp. Yeah, man. He's a good guy too. But so they're going to do that again this week with a couple guys. But I think maybe with an eye on addressing this issue, if Ojulari doesn't play, Roche could step in. He could get elevated, for example, and step in if Ojulari is scratched. And then maybe another guy who probably gets scratched, like wide receiver David Sills. But on Ojulari, important to note two things. One, he said on Wednesday that he was trying to play. He was hopeful, but he was sore. On Thursday, I watched him out there. He was moving pretty gingerly. So if he plays, he's still, in my mind, only going to be like a 10 to 12 snap situational rusher. I have my doubts of whether he'll actually go.
One player I want to talk to you about, Pat, is Isaiah Hodgins. I think the Giants, Joe Shane deserves a ton of credit. I think it was a waiver pickup. I think he's had touchdowns in 5 of 6 games, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Is this a situation where, teams miss on guys? They don't get – sometimes guys just need a chance. But we went through this here in Philadelphia a couple of years ago. If you remember, it was the pandemic year, actually. The Travis Fulgham run, where he was just one of the best receivers in the league for 4 weeks, and then just, bang, fell off a cliff again.
Yeah.
Is he the real deal? What's going on with Isaiah Hodgins?
Yeah, well, big difference between those two. I've heard a lot about Fulgham's lack of work ethic, and Isaiah certainly doesn't have a problem with that. A couple of things, reasons why he ended up on the Giants roster. One is that he came out of college with an injury, and then he also got hurt at the start of the 2021 camp. And so Buffalo liked him and drafted him, but he also could not get on the field, not just because of the injuries, but because the position he played is essentially Stephon Diggs' position. So all the routes he runs, he's not getting on the field, right? So he did earn a spot on the active roster with Buffalo, however, early this season was there. What ended up happening was they waived him and tried to get him down to the practice squad because they wanted Jake Kumaro as a special teams contributor / wide receiver as well. And the Giants kind of, pantsed him and went and got Hodgins because Joe Shane obviously was part of drafting him there.
Yeah.
A couple of things why he's doing so well. He and other guys have told me he knew the offense cold, having been in Buffalo with Brian Daboll coming in, so he didn't have to learn it. And then 2, he put in a lot of work in the offseason, put on about 7 pounds of muscle, worked out with Gabe Davis and his trainer, Burt Wiggum in Florida, and really just kind of turned the corner on being a pro who said, I'm not going to be on the practice squad anymore. And he and Daniel Jones quickly have formed a connection. And John and Jody, this is actually, for this game specifically, very important. Hodgins, not only because he knows this offense so well, but because he and Jones have put in so many extra reps, he is very good at finding windows in zones on broken plays. And I only can say that because I've watched it with my own eyes now for 7-8 weeks. Jones can move out of the pocket under pressure, and Hodgins knows where to be. And there were 2 huge gains in Minnesota in the fourth quarter, 19 yards and 32 yards in the second half. And they both were broken plays. Hodgins uncovers under pressure with Jones moving, and they both led to touchdowns. So that's something that the Eagles need to be watching out for.
Fair enough. All right, Pat. I would say neither of these teams is great at special teams. They're both okay at best.
Agree.
What is the length of Graham Gano's potential field goal? Because you didn't hear it. Our buddy Bob Groats, Nostradamus of Eagles coverage, said that it'll be a Graham Gano missed field goal attempt at the end of the game.
That's not a goal.
The 95.
He's not missing. He's not missing.
What is Gano's max range, just in case? Because if Groats is right, we'll never hear the end of it. But he's got him trying a long, maybe just a little too long field goal. what is the max length on Gano's field goal attempt?
Man, I'm not betting against Graham. So
Yeah.
years ago when he was with the Panthers beat the Giants on a last-second 63-yard Graham Gano field goal.
Yeah.
And I will never get that kick out of my head. I actually asked Gano this before the Vikings game because it was in a dome, and I was wondering how far he could hit in a dome with no conditions. And it's funny, like he kind of looked at me and he said, "No offense, I never tell anyone my max." He goes, even
Really?
during the games, like if someone from TV asks on the side so they know if we're late in the game, he won't tell anyone. But I've seen him hit a 63-yarder in an outdoor game to win a game. Wasn't a playoff game, but I'll just say this. If you're an Eagles fan counting on a Graham Gano miss at the end to win,
with you.
You're counting
I got it. Now, it is difficult to kick here at the one end of the field, the I-95 end, for the people that know Lincoln Financial Field.
Definitely.
There's a little bit of a swirling thing. But I got it at 56, Pat. If it's 56 or less, he's making it. And he
definitely.
is. You do not want to be in that position if you're an Eagles fan. That is a great, great kicker. Of course, the Giants also know Jake Elliott's pretty good as well. They got stung by a 61-yarder that set off the Eagles' Super Bowl run. That might have been the play that set it off.
It's
amazing how these kickers, though.
I still feel Jake Elliott doesn't get enough credit for that season.
Yeah. These kickers, 50-yarders, are the new 40. I mean, guys are banging through 50-yarders all the time. It's amazing.
I just voted these kickers. I voted Daniel Carlson, my first team All-Pro from the Raiders. He was 11 of 13 from over 50.
It is unbelievable how good these guys have gotten.
Crazy.
All right, let me go to the Giants defensive backfield. We know the game that the Eagles pantsed the Giants up there in North Jersey. They were down to Dory Jackson and McKinney. How much difference do putting those two guys back into the lineup make? I know they're better. Is it like substantially better or a major up? How would you describe the Giants defensive backfield with those two guys and without those two guys?
Their floor is much higher. I don't know if their ceiling rises tremendously, but the floor rises. So that's important from the standpoint of, Devontae Smith got behind them in the first game. Those giving up those big plays are things that Martindale always emphasizes. Like they'll give up yards in front of them. They just don't want to get beat over top. And McKinney is really important to that. He ran a post route for Justin Jefferson on a deep shot from Kirk Cousins. The interesting thing is McKinney has that bad hand and he didn't intercept the ball, frankly, in my opinion. I mean, no one's going to admit this, but I'm watching that. He's a ball hawk. I think he had trouble catching it, and that's why he didn't intercept it. And then if you notice after that play, they moved him down near the line of scrimmage and dropped Jason Pinnock back there. So that's something to watch for. But let's just face it. I mean, with them on the field, Justin Jefferson had 7 catches for 47 yards and no touchdown. So it's hard to say that it wouldn't make a difference. And then interestingly enough, take this for what it's worth, but talking to some offensive players in the locker room on Thursday, one of them specifically said after watching the defense prepare for the Eagles offense all week, said they're ready. So, they know what's coming. Doesn't mean they're going to stop it, but the Giants were one of the most injured teams all season. And now they are as healthy as they've been all year. So good timing for them.
Yeah. I'll leave you with, the one. I look at that Giants roster, Pat, and I stop at the linebackers and I go, oof, this is not good. This is not good. Jalen Smith was a good player at one point, but, obviously in the latter stages of his career, Jared Davis, I think they just got, right? They just got him, and they're playing a big role on that defensive side of the ball. We all saw, Minnesota, they did a great job against Jefferson, but they moved the ball. TJ Hawkinson had a huge game. You got Dallas Goedert here.
Yeah.
Those linebackers, are they an issue?
They could be. They're not especially fast laterally. They are better than what the Giants had in the building at the start of the year, though. They've been upgrades. I mean, I give Jalen a lot of credit. I mean, he's had a good year for what the expectations were of him. I mean, he was just a street free agent. I don't think people were expecting him to contribute meaningfully anywhere, let alone on a playoff team. So I think they've I think Jalen's had a pretty good season. However, he and Jared there, especially Jared being new, Jared's better than Micah McFadden, the rookie who was playing there before he came in and got acclimated quickly. That said, I mean, I think this game's all about Jalen Hurts being healthy and, playing his real game. And I just talked to Jalen actually on Thursday about stopping Hurts and the Eagles running game. And he said, first of all, frankly, it doesn't matter to them whether Hurts is dealing with a shoulder or not. He's a great player. They're expecting the best from him. And the other thing is when you face their offense and any offense that runs a quarterback like this, he said, instead of filling a hole and making a tackle, you're always having to shed a block and make a tackle because of that extra man out there with the quarterback run. And so it's already a position where teams have exploited the Giants this season, and the Eagles scheme directly attacks the inside linebackers. So I think you're on the right track that could be a key to the game.
All right. You've been quite honest with us. It seems like you're leaning toward the Eagles walking away with a win here. You haven't said that yet. No, make you say it in a second. Before we even get there, who's going to be the other half of the championship game? Before we decide Eagles Giants, San Fran at home against Dallas. You've certainly seen the Cowboys enough this year. 49ers hottest team in football. That's why they're the favorite in the game. Does the legend of Brock Purdy grow in the divisional round of the NFC this year?
Man, I'm picking the Cowboys to cover, but I could not put money on them to win the game outright. They could do it. They certainly proved me wrong last week. I was ready for them to lay another egg.
Really?
They dominated the Bucs, but I think that they have a chance. If they run the ball, don't turn the ball over, and if that pass rush gives Purdy even a little bit of an issue, I think that kid under pressure will make mistakes as well as he's played. So, run after the catch, the Cowboys have to tackle. I'm going to go with the Niners, though. I mean, they've won 10 straight games. It's hard for me to pick against them right now, even with Purdy going against Dak Prescott coming off that one. So I'll go with the Niners, but I like the Cowboys to cover.
All right. And throughout your analysis for the half an hour you spent with us here, you certainly seemed like you were leaning toward the Eagles, not downplaying or downgrading the Giants at all, but just that the Eagles have a slightly better roster coming into this game, and they have played twice, and the Eagles have won twice, and the Eagles are a 7.5-point favorite. Is this it for the Giants? End of the road. A tremendous season, right? This season is considered success, win, lose, or draw, unless they lose 73-0 tomorrow. This has been a good season for the New York Giants.
I'm taking the Giants. They're going to cover that 73.
You're taking Giants plus 72, John. Yeah, good call.
Oh, I thought you were picking the Giants to win.
No.
I almost fell off my chair.
No.
Listen, the Giants have a chance in this game. It's not impossible. I think the Eagles win and cover, though. I think that you're right. I think that it comes down to Jalen Hurts' health. I think if Hurts is healthy, I don't think the game will end up being very close. I think if he is limited or gets banged up and they have to adjust and Lane Johnson can't finish the game and all those kind of things, then I think the Giants have a chance. Listen, you guys know at the link, the crowd's going to be rowdy, but in Philadelphia, there's a little bit of let's just face it, the Niners have won 10 straight. The Eagles, the best team in the league all year, have had some injuries late in the year. And there's just that feeling of, coming off the bye, there was that week 18 where they only scored one touchdown against the Giants. Are we still that team, right? And so if the first quarter starts shaky, if the Eagles turn it over, if Hurts doesn't look like himself, the loose Giants are going to get looser and more confident, and the boo birds are going to get out. You're going to feel it, right?
Yeah, you brought it up, Pat. People don't understand. Yeah, that place will explode if the Eagles get off to a big start, and they'll probably steal the heart of the Giants. But a couple 3-and-outs, it'll go the other direction. They'll be booing the home team.
No doubt. So, I think, there's a chance for a Giants backdoor cover. Like 2 days ago, I thought 30-27 Eagles wasn't impossible. Right now, I'm at like 30-20 Eagles because the Giants most of the year scored right around 20 points. And they've had 38-31 the last two games against the Colts and the Vikings. One team that's tanking and another team that has one of the worst secondaries in football. They're just frankly not facing a defense like either of them. So I think they're going to struggle to score with a dynamic Eagles offense, and Philly will advance.
for any of those Eagle fans who are going to overreact to a couple 3-and-outs start the game, Dallas went 3-and-out twice on Monday night.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything the first couple possessions. I was like, all right, yeah, it looked good. Tampa's got a shot here. And then they just marched it up and down the field. So 2 possessions does not a game make. But you're good, Mr. Leonard. I like your score. Pat, a pleasure, as always. Thank you very much for not only doing today, but doing it as often as it did. Don't blame us, blame the NFL for scheduling the Giants and Eagles as closely as they did. And then they happen to meet in the playoffs as well. We always like when we can get you on. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah. And if the Giants pull the upset, we're going to be calling you again, Pat.
Oh, man, let's do it. Yeah. Hey, listen, I always appreciate coming on. And I've been saying this a lot to people this week, but it's true. The NFC East being good, it's good for me. It's good for you. It's good for the NFL. It's great football. And I can't wait to be down at the Link on Saturday.
4 teams left in the NFC playoffs, 3 of them from the NFC East. Kind of tells you how good the NFC East was this year. Pat, great stuff. Thank you very much.
Take care.
That's Pat Leonard from the Daily News giving us his insight and prediction on the Eagles and the Giants. And I got to tell you, he and I are coming up exactly the same. I'll come back with my score. Johnny Mack will have his score. We're going to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
All right, Mac and Mac guys, putting the bow on the show here on Birds 365 as the countdown continues to Eagles Giants on Saturday night. Johnny Mac, I'm going to go first with my prediction on the game. For the real zeal here on our feed, who doesn't like the fact that I pointed out some facts that when the Eagles and Giants played 2 weeks ago, the Giants did get an onside kick at the end of the game, down by just 6 when they scored late, that if they had recovered, they would have had a chance to take it in. Not that they would have, but they had a chance. Those are just facts, real. I'm sorry that the facts of what has already transpired don't fit your narrative. This is predicting in advance. And Real Zeal is predicting that the Giants get a late touchdown. And once again, much like 2 weeks ago, get a chance at an onside kick to tie the game because he's got it 27-20. I think it'll be an Eagles stop rather than a late score that they allow. A 4-and-out will end the game. And I've got the Eagles beating the Giants 30-20. Exact same score that Pat Leonard did. That's what happens when you let a guy make the pick first. Leonard goes out and gives the exact score. I'm going to go 30-20.
There was 1 week this year we gave the exact same score. I forget which one it was, but
are you making 3 for 3, 30-20?
No,
Eagles?
I'm pretty sure they're going to handle their business in this game. I think Jalen is okay, as well as he can be. I just mentioned those linebackers. Look, to stop the Eagles' offense with a Jalen Hurts at the level that he typically plays with, you got to have good linebackers to deal with this, and they do not. And so this, to me, I mentioned it early in the show, Jody. Styles make bites. The Giants do not match up well with the Eagles. That sentiment that, they play the same defensive scheme as the Vikings. Now, I'm talking personnel. They do not match up personnel-wise. I got the Eagles winning it rather easily, 31-14. Yeah, I think they handle their business. This is a great spot. But, we were just talking about special teams. I want to sneak this in there. Rick Gosselin, who has been sort of doing special teams rankings for years and years and years, Dallas-based reporter, came out with his annual rankings. The Eagles were 31st in football, so 31 of 32. Literally, the only thing they didn't do at least a competent level this year. Giants, as we just mentioned, they were 28th. So the one thing that both these teams, they're not good at special teams.
No.
But they both have good kickers. That's the one thing they have.
But there is a possibility that Boston Scott takes it to the house because he is going to score a touchdown. I already got my money in on it. Got better than 3-1, be it from the 8-yard line like he did last game in the first period of the Giants-Eagles game, or maybe taking one back there. Maybe the Giants win the coin flip and they decide we're deferring and they take the choice out of Sirianni's hands. And Boston Scott takes it to the house to start the game. They might be the worst.
He had a 66-yarder, I believe, against the Giants. I believe it was again. Yeah.
Was that the game up the Meadowlands? Did he go for 66?
I believe so. 66, yeah.
Wow. All right. That's
he
what I'm
doesn't have the long speed to take it
right
to the
off
house.
the bat. Get it over and done with. Cash the check to the house. Boston Scott on the opening kickoff. And both John and I have the Eagles winning the game, which means we'll be back talking about the matchup in the championship game between San Francisco or Dallas. Who is it, John?
San Francisco. Same. Pat and I agree. San Francisco is just playing well. They're the home team. I have some concerns. I think if Brock Purdy gets pressured, I think he makes some mistakes. But look, he's playing. Like I said, he's played better. So all the things about what we say about San Francisco are true. The playmakers, the coach, the scheme. But he's doing a better job than Jimmy did with the playmakers, the coach, and the scheme. So you got to give him credit, and they're going to win.
And or the rookie, the second-year quarterback who played for about 20 minutes, who lost the opening week to the Chicago Bears in some pretty bad weather, a slick field out there in Chicago. But yeah, he's been the savior of the season, and I don't think Cinderella turns back into a pumpkin this week. I think Purdy continues.
Next week, you'll have to wait 1 week. Then the pumpkin is coming.
We'll see if that happens here in Philadelphia. All right, Johnny Mac and I will be back on Monday, 2-2, being after 2 days after an Eagles-Giant game on Saturday. Be tuned all weekend ahead, the pre, the post game here for all of the JAKIB media stuff. And then Birds 365 back on Monday. Enjoy the game, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.